Hi, everyone. So the wonderful story that I have today is a story called Yosale, the Holy Miser. Anybody heard of this story before? Okay. So,
There's so many of them.
what is the godliest thing in the world that we can do? So the godliest thing in the world that we can do is just like Hashem is providing for us, we can provide for each other and we can help each other out. And in the holy cemetery of Krakow, there's a very special grave. It's not exactly inside the cemetery, but it's not completely outside of the cemetery. And it's kind of a lonely grave under a tree, a little bit in the side, not too far from all the other not from all the other graves, but not completely out. And one time, Shlomo says he had the privilege of visiting that cemetery. And there was a strange feeling there. On one hand, it's a very ancient cemetery, and nobody has been buried there for who knows how many years. And there is like a very heavy feeling of neglect in that place, and of a world that has been forgotten. And on the other hand, he had this feeling of vibrancy there, and like full of holiness, and somewhere between kind of twilight zone, between day and night kind of feeling. And that lonely grave that is there is a very strange tombstone writing. And it says, "Here is buried Yosale, the Holy Miser." And the Holy Miser, how does those two words can go together, right? So about 450 years ago in Krakow, the Jews lived already back then in a ghetto, not just during the Holocaust. And they were super poor. Life was very, very difficult. The Cossacks were running them and chasing them, just like in other parts of and times of history that we know. And there was this one very rich man in Krakow. His name was Yosale. And he was the biggest miser, as rich as he was, as miser as he was, the same level of miserness he had. He never gave anybody a penny. And friends, a miser is kind of an outsider in the world, because the world has been created by Hashem, and Hashem is giving all the time. So even if you give a little, you're part of the world. But a miser is somebody who's only taking and doesn't give back. So somebody like that cannot be a part of the world. So obviously, when a Jew like that comes to shul, who wants to, shake his hand or say good Shabbos to him? And on Rosh Hashanah, who would tell him Shana Tova? And when Yosale would walk on the streets, the kids, the adults would curse him. The kids would even throw stones at him, and everybody called him an ugly miser. And the Jews of Krakow were really embarrassed to have somebody like that amongst their community. A person like that who is so rich amongst so many people who are starving for a little piece of bread, and he doesn't give them anything, how can somebody be a part of us like that? And one day they heard that Yosale was dying, and he has a few hours left. So they came to visit him, and they told him, "Yosale, you never gave anything to the poor. Now that you're leaving the world, you're not taking anything with you up there to the grave, At least now in your last hour, give us 1,000 rubles," which was like $1 million back in the days, Maybe I'm exaggerating a bit, but it was a lot of money that could sustain many Jews for a long time. And Yosale said, "Sorry, gentlemen, I can't give you more than 50 rubles. So they said to him, "You know what? You're not taking the money with you. If you're not giving 1,000 rubles to the community, we're not taking care of your burial." So Yosale did not get too excited or overwhelmed by the threat. And almost with a whispering voice, with a little kind of strange smile on his face, he said, "I did everything myself during life, and I will bury myself too." Unbelievable. What a hard personality, right? Out of complete anger and despair, the Chaver Kadisha were going to leave the room. And suddenly they hear Yosale trying to speak up louder. And he says, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. And his soul left the world. And in their hearts they thought, how can he say Shema Yisrael with such a deep miserness inside his soul? What's to him and Shema Yisrael, How can he be connected to God with such a behavior, And the Chaver Kadisha were as stubborn as he was. And he died Sunday. By Wednesday, there was still nobody willing to bury him. Wednesday night, the smell started being a little bit, and he has a wife and children, and somebody has to bury him. So two neighbors in the middle of the night, so nobody will see them, took Yosala's body, brought her to the cemetery, and there, far away from everybody else, they buried him. But this is not where the story ends. It's only where it begins. In those years, the chief rabbi of Krakow was a very holy man. His name was Reb Kalman of Krakow. And on Thursday night, after Yosale was buried, he gets a knock on his door. A poor man knocks on his door and says, Holy Rebbe, please, can you give me some money for Shabbos? And Reb Kalman says, I would love to give you whatever I have. But tell me, please, I've known you for 20 years. How did you get by until now? How come only today you're asking me for help? And he says to him, the truth is that for the last 20 years, I didn't have a decent job. But somehow, every Thursday morning, I found an envelope by my door. And on the envelope, it said, Lekovit Shabbos Kodesh, in honor of Shabbos. And in the envelope, there was always 10 rubles. But not this morning. After a few minutes, another poor man knocks on the rabbi's door and says, can you help me a bit for Shabbos? And he says, sure, but where were you last week? Oh, Rabbi, it's been 10 years that I haven't had parnasa, but every Thursday morning, there's an envelope by my door, and it says Lekovit Shabbos Kodesh with 5 rubles in it. Anyway, throughout the whole evening, all of the poor people of Krakow knocked on Rabbi Kalman's door with the same story. Every Thursday morning, an envelope by their door. And one had 10 rubles, the other one had less kids. He had 3 rubles or 5 rubles or 1 ruble, everyone according to their needs. And all the envelopes had the exact same writing, Lekovit Shabbos Kodesh, in honor of Shabbos. So suddenly, it hit the rabbi, Yosale. Unbelievable. Suddenly, he realized what a holy man Yosale was. What a holy man lived amongst them, and they never realized it. Reb Kalman was so broken. How come we didn't give him his last honor by burying him properly? He felt such enormous guilt upon his shoulders and the whole community's shoulders. And he asked all the poor people, I don't understand you. How did he know how much you needed? And what are your exact needs? How come he gave one 10 rubles, the other 5 rubles, the other 3 rubles? And the first poor man tells him, and then the second man tells him, and the third man tells him, all happened the same way. Each one of them, one time in their life, had the guts to try and go to Yosale and ask him for some help. Who knows? Maybe once in his life, his heart will be open, and he'll be helpful. So Avremele tells, when I knocked on Yosele's door, he accepted me with such grace, with such a loving smile, with so much love and sweetness. He said, I'm so happy to see you. I'm so happy you came to visit me. And he let me in the door, and he told me, please, tell me your story. What's your name? Avremele. And what are you doing, Avremele? I'm a water carrier. And how many kids do you have? 12. Oy vey, Avremele, my heart is breaking up for you. You must be starving. Tell me honestly, how much money do you need to get by the week? And Yosale, I would tell him, If you only gave me 10 rubles a week, it would revive my children. And where do you live? He would ask. And I told him. And Yosale gave me a piece of cake and some coffee, and we sat and we talked and we had a nice chat. And all of a sudden, it's like it was another Yosale, like Jekyll and Hyde. He would flip over. He was a very strong man. He would get up. He grabbed me by the neck, threw me to the street, and he said, "Are you insane, Avramala? You think me, Yosale the Mayzer, will give you any money? Never in the world. Why would I give you my money? And don't dare coming here ever again." I would go home and I would tell my wife, this man is not just a miser, he's a lunatic. And the truth is, Avramala would end his story, that out of this desperation and so many worries, I even forgot that I went to visit Yosale. And when Thursday came, under Avramala's door there was an envelope, and he forgot to connect it to Yosale and to his visit there, and with 10 rubles. And Avramala thought it was the organization of the community that gave him the 10 rubles. And, the Chassid organization of the community. And same story. Avramala came, then Yitzchak came, then Yaakov came, then Moshe came, all had the same story. You understand? Reb Kama was completely shocked. He opened up his heart and he screamed from the bottom of his heart. Yosale was supporting the whole community. He revived the whole community for years, and we haven't even buried him. Shabbos morning, Reb Kama woke up in the morning. He went to shul, and he announced in shul that tomorrow, Sunday, everybody will be fasting. He asked everybody to come to shul. Nobody should be dismissed. And he said, we gotta apologize to Yosale and make amends. And the next day, everybody came to shul, and the cries and the prayers was to high heaven. Everybody was screaming, Yosale, Yosale, please forgive us for what we have done to you. Please forgive us, that you were so good to us and we were so bad to you. And they davened mincha, and they read the Torah, and and when they came to the part where it says, please God, come back from your anger at your people, everybody were just crying like crazy. And after Ma'ariv, Reb Kalman stood up on the bima and he said, wait a second, I feel that Yosale has not yet forgiven us. Reb Kalman went to the Holy Ark and opened it up, and from the bottom of his heart he yelled, Yosale, Yosale, in the name of all of Krakow, of all the Jews in Krakow, I beg you, please forgive us. Give me a sign that you forgive the community. And he just sat there and he fainted on the floor. And everybody thought he had a heart attack, God forbid, or something. But Reb Kalman just fell on the floor and fell asleep. And in his dream, Yosale came to him, Yosale the holy miser. But he didn't come to him in his appearance of this world. And he came to him in his appearance and the way he looks in Gan Eden. His face was shining like the holy priest on Yom Kippur. And he turned to the rabbi and he said, Reb Kalman, my dear beloved rabbi, there is no need to ask for apologies. Please, tell all my brothers and sisters, the holy people of Krakow, to go home. There is no reason to continue begging for forgiveness. I am the one who chose this way. I wanted to give like God gives, in an anonymous way. And that nobody should know about it except for God. I have only one request to you. Please, tell all the people of the Krakow that I thank them so much from the bottom of my heart that one time in their lives they had the guts to come to me. Please thank them that they told me their story and opened up their hearts to me. And also tell them, please, that here in Gan Eden, I'm sitting next to Avram Avinu and Sarai Menu, and I'm sitting in the highest place in heaven, and I have everything. I'm only missing one thing. I'm missing the people of Krakow. There are no poor people here. I want you to know I would give all of my Gan Eden for just one Thursday morning to walk around and give around envelopes. There are no broken hearts here that need to be healed. There are no broken doors here that need to be fixed. Please tell the people of Krakow how much I miss them and how much I miss every Thursday morning. And just before they parted, Reb Kalman said in the dream to Yosale, but please tell me, how did you feel when you were buried alone like that in the middle of the night? And Yosale answered, I can't, here in Gan Eden, I cannot lie to you. I can only ask you to believe me. I was not alone. Everybody came to escort me. Avram Avinu came with his wife Sarai Menu. Yitzchak Avinu came with Rivka. Yaakov Avinu came with Rachel and Leah. And Yosef Tzadik, Moshe Rabbeinu, and Aaron the holy priest. They were all there. And David, King David, was playing his harp behind me. And Eliyahu Navi was holding the candle in front of me until I went all the way to the highest place in heaven. So this is not yet the end of the story. In 74, Shlomo was invited to represent Judaism in a big interfaith gathering in a big city in America. The gathering was supposed to take a whole week. And the order was that every night, another religion was hosting the gathering. And we, Am Yisrael Jews, were chosen to represent the first night, to be the host of the first night. So the rabbi of the city, a very young man, who I remembered from the years that I was a young man in yeshiva, organized the meal for all the attendees. And there was so much love in the air, so much respect, so much sweetness, so much loving each other in spite of the differences. And here amongst the attendees, there was one bishop, a very special man with a great soul. But somebody who took my attention even higher, even more, was his right-hand man, who presented himself as Joe. There was something so special about Joe. Anyway, everybody said what they had to say, and then it was my turn to speak, Shlomo's turn. And in the beginning, I thought I should tell a Chasidic story. But out of nowhere, I thought I should tell the story of Yosale, the story that I grew up on from my father. And I told it. Unbelievable. Everybody who was there, like the whole floor was wet with tears. Anyway, the second night, it was the time of the Catholic to host the night. But somehow, something happened with their catering. So they asked the rabbi if he can do the Jewish night again. And so that way we got another kosher meal the second night. And since it wasn't our night, I was sitting in the crowd and was just listening. And suddenly, Joe comes to me and he says to me, I want you to know, the story you told last night was so beautiful. And not only was so beautiful, it really touched my heart. And I want you to know that the bishop also told me that he couldn't close his eyes the whole night. He was just thinking about Yosale, the holy Mayzer. And as of me, I can never tell you how much that story meant to me. I can't thank you enough for it. Anyway, he said to me that the bishop asked if I would tell the story again. So I told the story again and again. The whole crowd was just in tears. And we were there for a week full of mutual respect and joy and love. The last night, I was invited to give a concert in the local university with thousands of students. And just before the concert started, Joe comes by me, and his eyes are wet with tears and red with tears. And I understand he's going through something. And he said to me, "Please don't think I lost my mind. I need to hear the story again." And I promise you, if you tell me the story again, after that, I will explain you everything. And I mamish felt like how the way he asked for it, how his life is dependent on me telling the story again. So I told the story again and again. Everybody were crying. Yosale, the holy Mayzer. After the concert, Joe comes to me and he says, "Can we take a walk? I need to talk to you." I will never forget that night. We went up the hill and we walked quietly for a whole hour. Suddenly, he stands up to me and he says, "Excuse me, Shlomo, my name is not Joe. My name is Yosale, Yosale of Krakow." And I was so stunned, I couldn't take a word out. And Joe continues to tell, "I want you to know, my great grandfather is Yosale of Krakow. He was a Koznitz Chassid. He was very rich and a great Baal Tzedakah, a great charity man. My mother was his daughter. In the war, she was taken to the concentration camp of Dachau. My father was not Jewish. He saved my mother as an American soldier, where he found my mother half dead. He saved her, took her to America, healed her, and married her. But he made her one condition, that she will never tell her children that she's Jewish." So I come from a very Catholic home. And naturally, I went into learning to be a priest. And a few weeks ago, my whole world was shattered. My mother called me, and she asked me to come to her urgently. And she said, "My dear darling Joe, I only have a few days to live. Please come fast. I can't leave the world without telling you my story." So I came to the hospital, and I saw that my mother is not completely there anymore. But when she saw me, she got strong again. She held my hand and she said, "Joe, please, please forgive me for lying to you. I want you to know,
Sorry, I'm so sorry.
I want you to know you're not Joe, you're Yosale." I sat with her for 3 days, and she told me everything. She told me about her father, about my grandfather, the Koznitz Chassid, who was so full of charity and chesed. And she told me about my great grandfather, Yosale, the holy Mayzer. She spoke to me about what it is to be a Jew and what our nation and why our nation is so holy. She spoke to me about Shabbos and the holiness of Shabbos, about Yom Tov, about tzitzis, about tefillin, about everything. And at the end of those 3 amazing days, just a moment before she left the world, she turned to me and she said, "Please, my dear son, don't forget, you're not Joe. You're Yosale, Yosale of Krakow." And it was only after she left the world I understood how much she suffered for not living as a Jew. I'm sure that now she's also sitting in Gan Eden, next to my great grandfather, Yosale, the holy Mayzer. Joe stopped for a few moments, and after that he whispered with such a tremendous pain. He said, "Shlomo, you understand the earthquake that my soul has gone through in the last few days? I didn't know what to do with myself. I cried day and night. My heart was completely shattered. There was only one amazing question that couldn't leave me. Who am I? What do I belong to? On the outside, I'm Joe, the bishop, and and this amazing career is awaiting for me. And on the other hand, I know I'm not Joe. I know I'm Yosale of Krakow." So one of those nights when I couldn't help, bear my pain anymore, I prayed to Hashem and I said to him out of the bottom of my heart, "Please, Ribbon Shalom, Master of the world, I beg you, please give me a sign so I should know who you want me to be." Should I be Joe or should I be Yosale? Please give me a sign so I should know what I need to do with my life. And suddenly I said, God, please, if you want me to be Yosale of Krakow, send me somebody with the words Yosale of Krakow. So I come to this gathering, and I'm supposed to represent the Catholic religion. And the first night, you tell me the story of my great grandfather. You understand what went through me? I swear to you, I saw my mother standing behind you with her hands, with her palms spread to heaven in prayer. I know it's my mother who sent you to me to remind me that I'm Yosale, but I still didn't have the strength to decide to be Yosale. So the next night I ask you again and to tell the story. And suddenly Joe stopped for a second. He pulled out a plane ticket and he said, "This is a one-way ticket to Israel. Tomorrow morning, 5 a.m., I'm on my way to Israel." So he said, "Yesterday, I got the strength. I'm leaving. I'm not telling anyone." Remember, this is a story from 50 years ago, approximately. "And I'm not taking anything with me except for my soul. I don't want my father disappointed by my mother. It's thanks to him that she stayed alive. I don't want to give him sorrow. He should know that my mother told me that I'm Jewish." So when he ended the story, he said, "Please forgive me, Shlomo. I have to say goodbye quickly. I have to hurry up. Everybody sees that we've been talking through these days, and I don't want anybody to know. I just want to promise you one thing. If God gives me the merit to marry my soulmate in Jerusalem, the holy city, on the night of my chuppah, I will be sitting by the holy wall, and I will write you a letter." Gewalt, can you imagine how much I was waiting for that letter? Every time I came to the Holy Land, I was looking for Yosale. But how can I find him? Maybe he's afraid to see me. Maybe even the police is looking for him because for leaving the church. What do I know? Can I identify him just like that on the street? By now he's probably changed completely. Probably grew a beard and looks very different than the way I saw him last time in America with the big cross on his chest. And yet every time I walked on the streets of Jerusalem, all I can think about was Yosale. Where is he? Well, in 1979, 5 years after I said goodbye to him, I was holding a letter in my hands. I want you to know, I'm still shivering every time I remember holding that letter in my hand. On the front side, there was my name, and on the back side, it said Yosale from Krakow, Jerusalem, the holy city. Unbelievable. Only the Mashiach can understand that. And this is what Yosale wrote. To Shlomo, my dear brother and friend, I thank you so much every moment of my life for helping me knowing that I'm Yosale. I want you to know I'm here in Jerusalem, and after growing my beard, I look just like my great-grandfather looked. I have a beard, I have payas, I have tzitzis. I study Torah day and night just like my great-grandfather did. I keep Shabbos like my grandfather did. And I'm so happy to tell you that tomorrow night I'm marrying my soulmate. And she looks just the way I imagined my grandmother looked. Full of chen, of grace, with a golden heart, full of tzedakah and chesed. And now, as I'm sitting by the kotel, it's 4 a.m., and I'm writing you this letter like I promised. And I want you to know, the Shechina and Kucha Brichu I hear, the Shechina is crying and praying for the destruction of the Holy Temple. And you know who's crying with the Shechina? All the Jews of the world who forgot their Yosales. And I bless you with all my heart that every time you merit to mention all the Jews in the world, that you should awaken another heart to remember that they're Yosale of Krakow.